All right, guys, good morning. Happy Wednesday. We've made it to the middle of the week. Okay, so yesterday we left off knowing some very tragic news. Not only has Papa died, but Uncle Tio Luis has come to take over everything. And he's an ugly, spiteful little man, and he's going to make their life really miserable. Okay, and so now Esperanza and Miguel have met each other in the garden, in the rose garden where Papa had planted their roses for each one of them, a rose bush for each one of them. And they talked about that. And Miguel told her, we can't continue to stay in Mexico. We'll be slaves to Tio Luis, at least in the United States. Even if we're working really hard, at least we have a chance not to just be slaves our whole lives. And he told her, you're right, in Mexico, we stand on two different sides of the river. So we've got a lot going on with these characters, their feelings, how everybody is going on. So let's continue reading today. Tomorrow we will finish all the way through chapter 3. So we're going to read today and tomorrow. And you have about 3 pages, I think, in your packet. I'll look to make sure it's 3, but it's 3 or 4 pages in your packet that are due Friday. Remember, if you haven't picked up a book, pick them up Thursday, tomorrow, during packet pickup, please. All right, let's get started. Esperanza went up to her room thinking that nothing seemed right. She walked slowly around her bed, running her hand over the finely carved posts. She counted the dolls lined up on her dresser. 13, one for each birthday. When Papa was alive, everything was in order, like the dolls lined up in a row. She put on a long cotton nightgown with hand-sewn lace, picked up the new doll, and walked to the open window. Looking out over the valley, she wondered where they would go if they had to live somewhere else. They had no other family except Abuelita's sisters, and they were nuns in a convent. I won't ever leave here, she whispered. A sudden breeze carried a familiar, pungent smell. She looked down into the courtyard and saw the wooden box still sitting on the patio. It held the papayas from Señor Rodriguez, the ones that Papa had ordered, that should have been served on her birthday. Their overripe sweetness now pervaded the air with every breath of wind. She crawled into bed beneath the linens edged with lace. Hugging the dolls, she tried to sleep, but her thoughts kept returning to Tio Luis. She felt sick at the thought of Mama marrying him. Of course she had told him no. She took a deep breath, still smelling the papayas and Papa's sweet intentions. Why did Papa have to die? Why did he leave me and Mama? She closed her eyes tight and did what she tried to do each night. She tried to find the dream, the one where Papa was singing her birthday song. All right, here we jump into chapter 3, Los Higos, figs. The wind blew hard that night, and the house moaned and whistled. Instead of dreaming of birthday songs, Esperanza's sleep was filled with nightmares. An enormous bear was chasing her, getting closer and closer, and finally folding her in a tight embrace. Its fur caught in her mouth, making it hard to breathe. Someone tried to pull the bear away, but couldn't. The bear squeezed harder until it was smothering Esperanza. Then, when she thought she would suffocate, the bear grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her until her head wagged back and forth. Her eyes opened, then closed again. She realized she was dreaming, and for an instant she felt relieved. But the shaking began again, harder this time. Someone was calling her. She opened her eyes. Esperanza, wake up, screamed Mama. The house is on fire. Smoke drifted into the room. Mama, what's happening? Get up, Esperanza. We must get Abuelita. Esperanza heard Alfonso's deep voice yelling from somewhere downstairs. Senora Ortega, Esperanza. Senora Ortega, Esperanza. Here, we are here, called Mama, grabbing a damp rag from the wash bowl and handing it to Esperanza to put over her mouth and nose. Esperanza swung around in a circle looking for something, anything to save. She grabbed the doll. Then she and Mama hurried down the hall toward Abuelita's room, but it was empty. Alfonso, screamed Mama, Abuelita is not here. We will find her. You must come now. The stairs are beginning to burn. Hurry. Oh, are y'all thinking what I'm thinking? Are we sure that this is something besides just a typical house fire? Come on, guys, right? Uncle Tio is in the back of my mind right now, and I am not happy. Esperanza held the towel over her face and looked down the stairs. Curtains flamed up the walls. The house was enveloped in a fog that thickened toward the ceiling. Mama and Esperanza crouched down the stairs where Alfonso was waiting to lead them out through the kitchen. In the courtyard, the wooden gates were open. Near the stables, the vaqueros were releasing the horses from the corrals. Servants scurried everywhere. Where were they going? "Where's Abuelita? Abuelita!" cried Mama. Esperanza felt dizzy. Nothing seemed real. Was she still dreaming? Was this her own imagination gone wild? Miguel grabbed her. "Where's your mother and Abuelita?" Esperanza whimpered and looked toward Mama. He left her, stopped at Mama, then ran toward the house. The wind caught the sparks from the house and carried them to the stables. Esperanza stood in the middle of it all, watching the outline of her home silhouetted in flames against the night sky. Someone wrapped a blanket around her. Was she cold? She did not know. Miguel ran out of the burning house, carrying Abuelita in his arms. He laid her down, and Hortensia screamed. The back of his shirt was on fire. Alfonso tackled him, rolling him over and over on the ground until the fire was out. Miguel stood up and slowly took off the blackened shirt. He wasn't badly burned. Mama cradled Abuelita in her arms. "Mama," said Esperanza, "is she?" "No, she is alive, but weak, and her ankle. I don't think she can walk," said Mama. Esperanza knelt down. "Abuelita, where were you?" Her grandmother held up the cloth bag with her crocheting, and after some minutes of coughing, whispered, We must have something to do while we wait." The fire's anger could not be contained. It spread to the grapes. The flames ran along the deliberate rows of vines, the long curved fingers reaching for the horizon, lighting the night sky. Esperanza stood as if in a trance and watched El Rancho de las Rosas burn. Miss Simpson's Spanish is horrible, y'all know that. I'm trying, though. I never give up. Mama, Abuelita, and Esperanza slept in the servants' cabins. They really didn't sleep much, but they didn't cry either. They were numb, as if encased in a thick skin that nothing could penetrate. And there was no point in talking about how it happened. They all knew that the uncles had arranged the fire. At dawn, still in her nightgown, Esperanza went out among the rubble. Avoiding the smoldering piles, she picked through the black wood, hoping to find something to salvage. She sat on an adobe block near what used to be the front door, and looked over at Papa's rose garden. Flowerless stems were covered in soot. Dazed and hugging herself, Esperanza surveyed the surviving victims. The twisted forms of wrought iron chairs, unharmed cast iron skillets, and the mortars and pestles from the kitchen that were made from lava rock and refused to burn. Then she saw the remains of the trunk that used to sit at the foot of her bed, the metal strap still intact. She stood up and hurried toward it, hoping for un milagro, a miracle. She looked closely, but all that remained were black cinders. There was nothing left inside for some day. So these beautiful people that we've been introduced to have now not only suffered the death of Papa, who was the glue that held this family together, they've lost everything. Nothing is left. They're in their night clothes from last night, and there's nothing left. They know the uncles arranged this. They know that they're spiteful, greedy men. Remember, Esperanza called them a goat. And so now the family is left with nothing. Mama, Abuelita, and Esperanza. They're left with nothing. And this was the uncle's intent, right? To run them off. He wanted everything. If he couldn't have everything, then they would have nothing, right? If he couldn't have Mama as his wife, then he wanted them to have nothing. And now that's what they're left with. The grapes are gone, so there's no money that will be able to come in from the grapes. The house is gone, which means now they have no place left to stay. And that was all that Papa left them, was the house and the contents. But all that's gone now. Esperanza saw her uncles approaching on horseback and ran to tell the others. Mamma waited on the steps of the cabin with her arms crossed, looking like a fierce statue. Alfonso, Hortensia, and Miguel stood nearby. "Ramona," said Tio Marco, remaining on his horse, "another sadness in a short time. We are deeply sorry." "I have come to give you another chance," said Tio Luis. "If you reconsider my proposal, I will build a bigger, more beautiful house, and I will replant everything. Of course, if you prefer, you can live here with the servants, as long as another tragedy doesn't happen to their homes as well. There is no main house or fields where they can work, so you can see that many people's lives and jobs depend on you. And I am sure you want the best for Esperanza. Do you not?" Mamma did not speak for several moments. She looked around at the servants who had gathered. Now her face did not seem so fierce, and her eyes were damp. Esperanza wondered where the servants would go when Mamma told Tio Luis no. Mamma looked at Esperanza with eyes that said, "Forgive me." Then she dropped her head and stared at the ground. "I will consider your proposal," said Mamma. Tio Luis smiled. "I am delighted. I have no doubt that you will make the right decision. I will be back in a few days for your answer." "Mamma, no," said Esperanza. She turned to Tio Luis and said, "I hate you." Tio Luis ignored her. "And Ramona, if Esperanza is to be my daughter, she must have better manners. In fact, today I will look into boarding schools where they can teach her to act like a lady." Then he turned his horse, dug his spurs into the animal, and rode away. "Are y'all mad right now? Are y'all so angry? Oh, me too. Oh, this Uncle Luis. Oh." Esperanza began to weep. She grabbed Mamma's arm and said, "Why? Why did you tell him that?" But Mamma was not listening to her. She was looking up as if consulting the angels. Finally she said, "Alfonso, Hortensia, we must talk with Abuelita. Esperanza and Miguel, come inside. You are old enough to hear the discussions." "But, Mamma." Mamma took Esperanza by the shoulders and faced her. "Mija, my daughter, do not worry. I know what I am doing." They all crowded into Hortensio and Alfonso's tiny bedroom where Abuelita was resting, her swollen ankle propped up on pillows. Esperanza sat on Abuelita's bed while Mamma and the others stood. "Alfonso, what are my options?" said Mamma. "If you don't intend to marry him, Senora, you cannot stay here. He would burn down the servants' quarters next. There will be no income because there are no grapes. You would have to depend on the charity of others, and they would be afraid to help you. You could move to some other part of Mexico, but in poverty. Luis's influence is far-reaching." The room was quiet. Mamma looked out the window and tapped her fingers on the wooden sill. Hortensia went to Mamma's side and touched her arm. "You should know that we have decided to go to the United States. Alfonso's brother has been writing to us about the big farm in California where he works now. He can arrange jobs and a cabin for us, too. We are sending the letter tomorrow." Mamma turned and looked at Abuelita. With no words spoken, Abuelita nodded. "What if Esperanza and I went with you to the United States?" said Mamma. "Mamma, we cannot leave Abuelita." Abuelita put her hands on Esperanza's. "I would come later, when I am stronger." "But my friends and my school, we can't just leave. And Papa, what would he think?" "What should we do, Esperanza? Do you think Papa would want me to marry Tio Luis and let him send you to school in another city?" Esperanza felt confused. Her uncle said he would replace everything as it was, but she could not imagine Mamma being married to anyone but Papa. She looked at Mamma's face and saw sadness, worry, and pain. Mamma would do anything for her, but if Mamma married Tio Luis, she knew everything would not really be as it was. Tio Luis would send her away, and she and Mamma wouldn't even be together. "No," she whispered. "You are sure that you want to go with us?" said Hortensia. "I am sure," said Mamma, her voice stronger. "But crossing the border is more difficult these days. You have your papers, but ours were lost in the fire, and they forbid anyone to enter without a visa." "I will arrange it," said Abuelita. My sister's in the convent. They can discreetly get you duplicates." "No one would know about this, Senora," said Alfonso. "We would all have to keep it a secret if you come. This will be a great insult to Luis. If he finds out, he will prevent you from leaving the territory." A tiny smile appeared on Mama's tired face. "Yes, it would be a great insult to him, wouldn't it?" "In California there is only field work," said Miguel. "I am stronger than you think," said Mama. "We will help each other." Hortensio put her arm around Mama. Abuelita squeezed Esperanza's hand. "Do not be afraid to start over. When I was your age, I left Spain with my mother, father, and sisters. A Mexican official had offered my father a job here in Mexico, so we came. We had to take several ships, and the journey lasted months. When we arrived, nothing was as promised. There were many hard times, but life was also exciting. And we had each other, Esperanza. Do you remember the story of the phoenix, the lovely young bird that is reborn from its own ashes?" Esperanza nodded. Abuelita had read it to her many times from the Book of Myths. "We are like the phoenix," said Abuelita, "rising again with a new life ahead of us." When she realized she was crying, Esperanza wiped her eyes with her shawl. Yes, she thought, they could have a home in California, a beautiful home. Alfonso and Hortensia and Miguel could take care of them, and they'd be rid of the uncles. And Abuelita would join them as soon as she was well. Still sniffling and caught up in their affection and strength, Esperanza said, And I could work too." They all looked at her, and for the first time since Papa died, everyone laughed. Okay, guys, this is where we're stopping for the day. The family has made a decision. We've had this building plot. The uncles were horrible. It looks like we're going to have a resolution to this part of our story. They've all made the decision to go to United States. The sisters in the convent are going to help get Mama and Esperanza papers, visas, so they can cross over. They're going to make sure they keep it a secret from Tio Luis so that he doesn't stop them from leaving the territory, because it will be very humiliating for him when they leave and he's left with nothing except his greed, right, in their land. So, boys and girls, again, pick up the book from the school. I miss you guys dearly, and I will see you tomorrow for the end of chapter 3. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and I will see you tomorrow.